Forces from houses Kassido and Kellerman invaded the world of Thermon, where escaped slaves from both their empires had settled and were defending. They both wanted their slaves back and control of the planet, so this pitched them against their former slaves and each other. The battle in orbit had ended with a Kassido victory, but more Kellerman shuttles had made it onto the planet, which gives them the advantage in the ground battle, which we will be playing today. We're using the rules for Star Wars Legion, or at least what we currently know about the rules. At the time of this taping and of playing this game, Legions is not released yet. I was planning on waiting until Legions was out to do the game with all the official rules and all that sort of thing. However, somebody invented this neat little tabletop simulator version, which is great for impatient people like me who want to at least try it and jump into it. Plus, I'd like to actually do this game and include it with this season of RPG Storytime. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, or if maybe you're watching through Command Combat Battle Reports, or you're just tuning in now, this is part of a larger series, a larger campaign that all takes place in a couple of sectors called the Juvex Sinex sectors in the Star Wars universe, and it's this overall role-playing game campaign, but also has parts of X-Wing in it, Imperial Assault, and now Legions, to sort of determine the fate of this sector. And in this sector you have these various houses which all are run by, all have slavery in them, and they all are, sort of powerful in their own regard. The Empire isn't as strong in this particular sector, and you have these various rebel players who have been running around and making deals and dealing with them and all that sort of thing. If you'd like to see that and what the relevance of where this sort of the story behind this particular battle, I'll put the links below for both the role-playing game and the game of X-Wing, which was the orbital battle which led to this. Just for those of you who saw that and are kind of wondering, well, how are there Kassido forces down here? The idea is that because in that battle a Kellerman shuttle made it to the ground and the Kassido forces did not. Well, the idea of that was to determine how many forces they would actually have. The idea is that there's supposed to be other ships were invading the planet, and so the Kassido shuttles landed in different areas, so you still have some forces, but you're basically going to wind up with an extra 100 points for Kellerman, who managed to get their ships down to the ground in that particular game. So anyway, that leads us here. Kassido is this one. They're the green forces. Kellerman are the yellow forces, and the slaves who are already here are these forces over here. Of course, they are outnumbered. That's the whole idea. Is Kassido and Kellerman were powerful empires, and they're coming down here to crush them. But of course, there has to be a clear winner, so if it's still in a stalemate at the end of this, at the end of 6 turns, then the slaves still control the planet. Of course, these are not forces in Star Wars Legion. By the way, here is the game itself. Make sure to go out there and get it. They even say so in this Tabletop Simulator version that, hey, don't just play this game, go out and get the game, which is a really good thing. Of course, these forces are not in there. This is just from our campaign. This was all sort of made up from. So this game's going to be a little funky because, of course, we're not using the official rules. We're using what we've kind of figured out from watching demos of the game and that sort of thing, and our own kind of troops. So let's get to it, shall we? This is both just sort of for entertainment and to see what Legion is like, and also to continue on with our story of our Star Wars ongoing campaign. Alright, so here's the Kassido forces. You can see they have 2 groups of just your basic soldier minions, their commander, and a walker, well, one of the ATRTs I think they're called. I forgot to put the card down here. We're using that one actually is from the game itself. Anyway, but we have Lord Wadrat, who is commander, and he has the ability to target after firing at an enemy unit. If Wadrat hits, he may cancel 1 damage to automatically give a unit in command range aim. That's usually something somebody has to choose to do for their action. He's got 5 wounds, 5 morale. It's the green and yellow numbers on the right. He defends with a yellow dice, and he fires with a white. Actually, all of them are going to have blaster rifles. I decided not to screw around with that. And the information on the left, this is from the Stormtrooper template card, so I don't really know a lot of things that are here. But anyway, Relentless, when a hit is scored with this unit, you may spend 1 aim token to turn one of the units into critical hit. Alright, and now Oh, yes, this is very important. They're command cards. These command cards go to everybody, but these are specific to the commander, which is interesting because that's very much of a type of thing. Actually, the regular ones are kind of like from Memoir 44 or Battle Lore, where it's like, okay, whichever one you play, that's the number of orders you're going to, give out. And then you have these special ones just from the commander, which is more like Battles of Westeros, if you've ever played that. They've got suppressive fire, or this particular one. So anyway, so it's going to be specific. These are going to be specific to Lord Radrad. Actually, come to think of it, I think Fantasy Flight did Battles of Westeros, so that kind of makes sense as to why they did that. Anyway, so one of his cards is suppressive fire, and you can read that if you like. Another one is heavy fire. Actually, I will read them. Suppressive fire, choose one unit in range of an enemy unit. Roll as if firing every hit causes a suppression, then one unit is activated. 2, heavy fire, activate 2 units. These 2 units can fire for both their actions. And 3, bombardment, choose a unit within range of Lord Radrad. Fire with 5 red dice. Cover does not negate unless it has a roof. Activate 1 unit. Alright, so basically they're going to be able to use each of those one time, during the game. Then you've got, on the Kellerman side, they're led by Lady Rivas. Building morale, for example, when Lady Rivas hits an enemy, she can choose one friendly unit within short distance. That unit loses 1 suppression for each point of damage she caused the enemy. And she has the Kellerman soldiers awaiting the opportunity. Whenever no damage is done on a target, this unit automatically goes into standby. And then they have, and by the way, I'm sure some of these are overpowered, some are underpowered. This is literally the first game we're doing with this. This is not officially from the game. They play test over and over and over again. This is, again, for our world, for our ongoing storyline, etc., etc. I'm going to be screwing around with these rules a lot as we go along through the campaign because it's supposed to be, our specific world. There will be stormtroopers and, Imperial forces and all that sort of thing, which in those cases, of course, we'll use the regular rules. Anyway, in fact, actually, one of them that I'm going to have to put here is the ATRT. We're going to use the regular card for that. I just simply forgot to put it out yet. Anyway, she also has for her special commands, she has Get Moving. 1 unit is activated. 2 others can move short distance but are not activated. 2, hold your ground. All units that get standby as an action this turn lose 1 suppression. 2 units are activated. And 3, press the attack. 3 units are activated. 1 unit fires as a free action. So when you activate, everybody gets activated, but when it says 3 units activated, that means she gets to choose when they go, all that sort of thing. Now in this case, you're only going to have 2 units, so the number of units doesn't really matter. But anyway, we have the commander, Fogmugan, and you may recognize him if you've been watching the RPG Storytime storyline. His wife left with the rebels. She was going to bring him along, but he said, no, I have to stay here and fight with my soldiers, and so that's why he is currently here. And she is currently saying she's going to go rescue her child from slavery, and then she's going to come back to rescue him. We'll see if he'll be around for her to rescue. Anyway, keep safe as an action for Fogmugan can choose a unit at short range. That unit converts 1 suppression into a dodge token, and local terrain. No restrictions on any movement throughout the board. And then you have the ex-slave warriors, shoot and scoot. If this unit has a dodge token, it can get a free short movement after firing. And then local terrain, no restrictions on any movement throughout the board. And then Fogmugan's commands are a shoot and scoot, which is the same thing as here, except in this case, unit gets a free movement after shooting, so they don't have to have a dodge token. I would say that's sort of like, well, then it just basically means they get to use their movement and have a different action. The real truth, though, is I just simply forgot that I had already given her the shoot and scoot ability. If I was making this as an official game, I would make that order different, but hey, we're already here now, so let's just have a battle. 2 is dissolve into scenery. Activate 2 units. All units in command range when hit get 1 extra cover. And they only have 2 units, so that's all that's going to matter. But I'm partially making this so if these guys survive, they're going to go on, and of course he's going to keep his command cards and all sort of thing. I save all of these Tabletop Simulator things. 3, secret passage. Choose 1 unit within command range. That is in cover. Fogmugan and the chosen unit can disappear for this turn into the terrain. By the way, I should explain the terrain on here. The gray is like rocky terrain. These hills are like craggy hills, that sort of thing. These are like they're craters, that you can kind of go into. All of these are considered some form of cover because the idea is that these are like craggy hills that you can go into little nooks and crannies, and there's rocks all over the place. These are all objectives. This is an objective, that's an objective, and then these are objectives. You get 1 extra point for being on them. And I'm going to have to look up to see what other rules there are for victory or whatever points, but anyway, we'll see if there's a clear victor here. Otherwise, if it goes to turn 6 and there isn't one, then we'll add it up to see who's who's won. Actually, I have already determined if neither of the houses have clearly gotten rid of the slaves, then the slaves actually win. So the slaves just need to hold out. So we're gonna see. This should be interesting. Let's try this game of Legion. At the end of turn 1, we can see that the forces have kind of moved out. Actually, the cards that they used for Kassido was Assault. They sent all 3 of their units at one time. For Kellerman, it's Push. They sent a couple of units out there, and then, of course, all the rest got to move after that. And the X-Slaves did push as well. The X-Slaves moved first. They put themselves basically behind the barricades and into cover, basically waiting for whoever's going to come at them. The Kassido did not go at them. They instead are pushing over here towards the right to go after Kellerman, which are, of course, the really big force, and they are spreading out. They send a few here. Send like basically 2 to their left, 2 to their right to do a wide flanking maneuver, it looks like, and then 1 up the center. They have the forces to do it, and of course their commander's right there in the center, keeping yourself close enough to be able to give orders and give special advantages. No shooting, actually. There would have been a shot here because they put on the slaves put themselves on Overwatch, and the ATR2 moved last. But it stayed sort of out of the way. It sort of skirted over to make sure to still be out of range of the X-Slaves. So on to turn 2. And the battle is getting going in full here. Let's start with the orders that are going on here. We have Kellerman is doing the initiative of 1, get moving order. That's a special one from their commander. The Kassido did 2 push, and the X-Slaves did 3 assault. Now, what the number is, that is the that's the initiative, so it'll go from the lowest to highest. Also, it typically means how many units will be ordered during that. In the get moving, she has 1 unit is activated, and 2 others can move a short distance, but are not activated. But that is not that extra movement is not considered one of their actions. So essentially, she's taking the initiative, having 1 of the units move first by having it initiative 1, and also by having that special card means that they'll get a little extra distance. So she's basically getting these 2 units to go a little faster. She used this. She wanted the initiative to basically move up and to hold Kassido into place with the troops here. So they did. They ran into this crater and took cover. And with the extra movement, moved these up around this way, got the extra movement to swing around behind the X-Slaves. The Kassido, meanwhile, wanted to wait a little bit and get going forward, so it was kind of perfect for everybody because of the fact that Kellerman got to do her quick move. Kassido wanted to go a little bit fast, but not necessarily too fast, and so he wanted 2 units to be able to move. He saw what Kellerman was doing, and he struck. He saw that this 1 unit went into this crater, ran forward with this unit, got into the rocks, fired, as you can see, got a critical, a regular hit. You ignore 1 of them because they're in cover, but a critical hit you do not. It just automatically does the wound, took out 1 of them, and he also, with the second one, with the 2 orders that he gets, he moved the ATR2, moved over here, didn't do any damage. However, later in the turn, you had these, seeing that they have the initiative, essentially that they're basically being able to push forward, they pressed the attack, sent these guys forward to the other side, and got another critical. So this unit of 5 guys is already being chopped down. They're out in the open, but since they had already spent all of their movement to get into that crater, they were not going to be able to fire back, and so they just rushed up there and started damaging them. So Kellerman, who's trying to just hold them off on that side, is already getting chopped away. But she doesn't seem too concerned. The commander came over here and is making sure that this movement around behind the X-Slaves is going well. The X-Slaves themselves, speaking of them, by the way, they saw this movement and they came up here and put themselves on Overwatch, getting ready for any of them that are coming around. Now, I said earlier that the hills count as terrain, and yes, it has rocky, terrain and all sort of thing, or crags to move around in and stuff like that, but it's not supposed to be considered cover, at least not in this particular thing. I'm going to play it like it's cover when somebody's firing from below ground up to them. It's not as though the lasers are going to fall down or anything, but the idea being, because there are some rocks and stuff like that, you can kind of get enough cover that shooting up at you is going to be a little difficult. So they're going to have cover as long as the Kellerman troops are below them, but once they get up onto their same level, they're going to be at the, there's not going to be any cover there. But anyway, you can see Kellerman now is coming at them with 3 units and is holding Kassido back with 2. Kassido is putting it all in over here. They're not even bothering with the slaves at this point. They're just going right after Kellerman. And as for the ex-slaves, they've left their commander here to hold out while the unit goes up there to try to hold them on the hill. So let's see what happens with that next turn. A bad turn for Kellerman. Let's start with the orders here. They did press the attack. It's initiative 3, so it's a little later in the turn, but they're going to have 3 units activating and 1 unit firing as a free action, which is pretty darn powerful. With what was going on up here, it was really time to do that, to go rushing in at the ex-slaves and start making their move. More on that in a moment. Kassido did ambush. They wanted to go first, so they get their, one. It's only ordering 1 unit, but their initiative is 1, so they're going to go right away. And the slaves wanted to go first, and of course they really only have 1 unit, so it was best for them to do that. So, the ex-slaves started out first. They immediately pulled their ambush, and actually, it doesn't mean they fire first, it means they activate first. This guy's up here. That means they activate first, so they use their activation to put on Overwatch and onto aim, so basically they just stood up there waiting for anyone to come up to them, because while Kellerman was all around here, they didn't really have an angle to be able to shoot at them. Behind there, that's a cliff back there, so they weren't able to shoot at that. And back here, they were back here in these rocks, so put themselves in aim and Overwatch and waited. And then these units went up here through the rocks and immediately got fired on by the slaves. Got 1 critical, took out a guy. They fired back, did not get any hits, and the slaves were considered to have had a bit of cover because they were shooting up at them. So. Meanwhile, these guys went rushing around. Some of them went up this direction, so they got a regular movement up there. These guys had to clamber up the back, and I'm not completely certain on what the rules are for that, but I'm getting the idea from some of the things they talked about. If you're climbing basically like a cliff or something that is really steep, you have to roll for it, and you roll your defense die, because they said something about you not even have to roll, or like one of the advantages was, do something, to clamber without rolling your defense die. So I get the idea, it's defense die. This one here, but so they all passed from essentially what I created as the rule for that. All of them passed except for 1. One of them tried to clamber up, did not make it, so they lost a guy in clambering up the back. But now Kellerman has 2 units of guys up there ready to go down on those, ready to attack the ex-slaves there, and they've already used their ambush, so not sure if they're going to be able to use something else. They've been holding out pretty well, but this may be it for them. However, Kellerman is not holding on their other side. Actually, you can tell, by the way, Kellerman is really going to go in on that, go all in on it, because the commander has moved over there and is now going. They're the only ones who are in command radius for her, so she's clearly making an effort at that particular front. Kassido, meanwhile, is clearly making an effort to just take out as many Kellerman as possible, because they are rushing around this way, and they took position, and as you can see from those criticals, they have finished them off. They came from this direction, that direction, they came from the ATRT. I mean, they're just getting a lot of criticals on them, and we found that these Kellerman, the ones on the hill, are just out of range, so they basically decided to hold out. Actually, we forgot to put the Overwatch on there, but they're essentially overwatching and aiming and waiting for Kassido to come at them from that angle. The idea is for them to hold off while they go in and try to take that objective. So we will see as we move on to turn 4. This game's already more than halfway through, to see if they can do it. Turn 4 was an absolutely deadly one. Let's start with the orders as always. Kellerman decided to push their attack with an ambush, making sure they go first, even though it's just 1 unit. They were ready. They had made their strike to attack the, I want to say rebels, but the slaves. And wow, what an attack. Look, these all were ex-slaves. 4 shots that took them down in 1 single turn. didn't get a single defense die. I guess it's not there anymore, but it was 4 hits and 4 rolls for defense, and not one of them succeeded. They all just fell over dead, just straight out murdered them. It just so happened that same turn, the slaves, I almost call them rebels again, slaves had secret passages theirs, which they could choose one unit within command range that is in cover. Fogmogun and the chosen unit can disappear. Well, there was only one person left, so it was perfect timing for him to do it, because he basically just said, "We're out of here." So the one remaining person from that unit and Fogmogun just disappeared into the caverns and cave networks and all that sort of thing. They're supposed to reappear at this space and basically can make a regular movement somewhere. We'll see if they do, or if they just simply say, okay, that's it for us. We are going to escape into the caverns and all that sort of thing. Over here, you remember that Kassido had taken out the Kellermans in that crater, but they played bombardment. Basically, the Kellermans on this hill were just waiting for them. We're like, okay, well, you're going to have to come at us. And he said, no, I don't. I'm going to send a bombardment there, and basically brought in a space bombardment. Remember, they had taken over they had won in the space battle, so they have all the ships there. Full air power, came down, once again, 5 hits, no defenses, no successful defenses, just wiped them out, destroyed an entire unit in one turn. That was just absolutely crazy. So the others started slowly moving in. Kellerman units over here got themselves into place in these rocks, and the ATRT moved on over here, fired at these, and once again, 2 hits, no defenses. So this was a good attack turn. The Kellermans did manage to take the slave area, but now the Kassidos have come in on their flank and have just been slaughtering them. And this may actually go Kassido's way. I mean, even though Kellerman went after the slaves, even though they have taken the objective, Kassido now has really taken over this board. And in fact, they still have their original, they have not lost a single piece yet. They have 2 full units. It's 10, 11, 12, whereas Kellerman has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They still outnumber them just barely, but Kassido has the ATRT, which means they can outrange. His range is 3, their range is 2. You can just sit back and just pick them off one by one, and there's a big open area, so Kellerman would have to run across that big open area to get to them. They are gaining a victory point every turn by having this space, but we'll see. I mean, those are 2 objective markers, but it counts as 1. It just basically means they had a wider area, and of course it's open to the Kellerman victory point, so we'll see if Kassido just ends up stealing this from them. We're coming up to the end of the game, and it is not looking good for Kellerman. We start off with Kassido's order of suppressive fire. It is initiative 1, so it goes first, and they gave it to the ATRT to fire at the unit that was here in the rocks. Actually, it's not this unit, it was this unit who was there, and it didn't work. He fired, did not successfully get any suppression. We've actually been forgetting to use suppression throughout this, but it really wouldn't have mattered, because you just get a suppression every time you're fired at, and you lose a suppression every turn. So if you're just fired at once and then you just lose it, it just equals out. So really it wouldn't have mattered, except for the Kellermans who were over here, but of course they just kept getting wiped out, so it really didn't make a difference. Anyway, so he tried to put suppressive fire on the unit that was here in the rocks. It didn't work, and so the next thing he got to do is activate 1 unit. So he just went ahead and activated the ATRT, and so he gave him the aim token and then fired, and he still, managed to miss somehow. Even with aiming and even with firing, he just, for some reason, just was not his day. So he was firing and didn't really do anything. So the Kellerman troops ran up this hill to get a little closer, and of course they have to get closer, because firing from over here, they're just out of range of anything that was happening with the Kassidos. Were all back here. They could not get any range on them, or they could not hit them, whereas the ATRT could just pick them off from where they were. So they had to move forward, got up to this hill, and of course having the hill gives them a little advantage, because, or at least gives them cover from those who are below them. So they got up to there, were not into range with the Kassidos. This is sometimes a disadvantage of going before your opponent, because they got into range there. Now they could have put themselves on Overwatch, but they had used all of their movement just getting there. And so once they were there and vulnerable, and they couldn't do dodge, they couldn't be on Overwatch, they couldn't do anything, the Kassidos saw that and just did a full-on charge. They first went into this crater, started firing took out 2 of them right away, and then these others came running forward. They didn't actually do any damage, but they have managed to go forward. In fact, they've given another suppression, because that would be 1 from them and 1 from them, plus he fired at them. So these guys actually would have 3 suppression at this particular point, which I think it's going to suppress them in general. The way the suppression works is it is your yellow number there times the number of units that you currently have. They only have 2, so basically they've, if you go over 2, or 2 or above, then they're suppressed. So that unit is now suppressed with all the fire that's going on to them, which makes sense. The commander came over. He actually didn't fire. He's just running over to finish it off by taking their cargo. And that's where we stand with 1 turn left, because Kellerman did get 1 more point for having that objective, but they're just getting picked off. There's, if all of them are dead, then there's nothing more that they can do. And that finishes it, and it did not go well for Kellerman, which is surprising, because Kellerman started out at the beginning just so dominating over everything, having so many more units, but Kassido just had a good strategy of just concentrate all on one group and just rolled up their flank there while Kellerman was distracted trying to take out the slaves. Kassido stabbed him in the back, which actually makes sense for these houses. That's kind of what they do. They stab each other in the back. Came after Kellerman, took out a bunch of them. In fact, in this last turn, you can see they had a lot of suppression on them, and they managed to take out... Actually, this is the card they played, was as the last one. Heavy Fire, activate 2 units. This is the Kassido turn. Activate 2 units. These 2 units can fire for both their actions. Normally, you can only fire for 1 action. This time, they fire for 2. They were already in place, so they didn't need to move and fire. So you could just sit there and lay down fire. Finished off the rest of that unit, except for its commander. And then just fired from a long range with the ATRT. Actually, this was the thing at the beginning of it. They both had played an Initiative 2 card, so either of them could go first. He played Heavy Fire, she played Hold Your Ground, which also, it isn't as good as that, but it does reduce some, some suppression. Basically, in both cases, they were in place, and it's just, okay, just open fire. And these guys could go up to the edge of the rocks and shoot these guys out in the open, so it could have worked well in Kellerman's favor if they went first, but they both played Initiative 2, so it became a roll-off. Kassido won that, and they were able to just use their heavy fire and just blasted them off of this hill, almost off of this hill, because there was 1 unit left, or 1 single guy left. Then Kellerman got their turn at a much reduced rate of fire, and didn't manage to get a single kill, which Kassido never lost a single stand. They did not lose 1 single guy. Now again, I don't know if this was overpowered, if I made, this has not been playtested over and over. This was just simply using what the 2 houses are powerful in. Kassido is kind of known for being a little bit more in terms of being expert and careful and getting higher technique and that sort of thing. Kellerman is supposed to be known more for either speed or aggressiveness and all that sort of thing, and I guess the care took precedent over aggression today. But anyway, so I guess the story-wise, what happened is Kellerman realized they were outmatched, so they ran back, got into the shuttle, took off. Kassido has taken the planet, so they have both the orbit and the surface of the planet. The slaves, meanwhile, have escaped into the caverns and the secret places all over. So that's going to be it. That's going to be that is our game of as you can see here, Star Wars Legion, coming out sometime soon. Who knows when exactly? These things can get delayed. But I wanted to play that as part of our series, and now the game is this particular season is complete. We will be back next season with more of those, but next week I'm actually going to be explaining a little more about the state of this particular sector, so you're going to be able to catch up with what's going on. But until then, thank you all for watching, and when Legions comes out, by the way, with the real official game, I will play some of those as well with some folks, and we'll have some of those videos. They won't be part of our RPG Storytime campaign, but they'll be games of Legion, so you can see them. Anyway, thanks for bearing with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, happy gaming, everybody!